Well, first of all, it's Tuesday. Happy Christmas Eve to those of you who celebrate, and I hope you are enjoying time with your family if you're able to do so. If not, happy early Christmas. That being said, you guys wanted, for the next top 10, you wanted me to cover top 10 magic items for Matthew Mercer's Blood Hunter class. I will go over a little bit more about it after this break, but if you want to see what my top 10 items are for Blood Hunters, stay tuned. Alright, so to get our rules out of the way up front, first of all, 1, we will not be dealing with any legendary items, artifacts, or sentient weapons, as we typically have. We will not be dealing with any consumables, potions, scrolls, things of that nature. And we're not going to be dealing with any of the tomes or any of the manuals that increase your stats by +2, and then increase the overall maximum of that ability score by 2, as well as the Iron Stones that pretty much do a similar thing. Also, if you are completely confused about what the Blood Hunter is, this is a class that Matthew Mercer created. Matt Mercer from Critical Role created this class. A lot of people seem to have adopted it as it is 100% a canonical class in Dungeons & Dragons. It is not. It's just made by someone who's very well known in the Dungeons & Dragons community, and as such has been sort of adopted by a lot of folks. It doesn't help that it's available for people to pick as a class on D&D Beyond, which again was done in accordance with him, so that when one of his players in Campaign 2 could play one, it would all be in D&D Beyond. You can go and check it out. I believe it's still for free to download off the DMs Guild, as well as for free to look at on D&D Beyond. So if you want to see what it is, you can. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to assume you already know what the Blood Hunter is and know how it works, so when I start talking about different features for the items, you'll understand. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do a separate video on the Blood Hunter. I did a review years ago, but I'm much more knowledgeable about the game. I'm much more knowledgeable about what's good and what's not, and I played one for 17 levels, so I know what to expect. So if you want to see me make a separate video just on the Blood Hunter, let me know. But anyway, let's dive in to number 10. Number 10. So number 10 is the Eyes of the Eagle. This one was a little tricky, right? As a Blood Hunter, you kind of fall into a weird role where you're pretty much considered to be a melee class no matter what, but you also have a large focus on your ability to track things and find things, specifically the type of creatures you'd be hunting as a Blood Hunter. So I put Eyes of the Eagle on here. You'd already get a bunch of things that are going to increase your survival checks and things like that. So being able to see really well makes sense. So this is going to give you advantage on perception checks using wisdom that rely on sight. And in addition, in clear visibility, you can make out details of even extremely distant creatures and objects as small as 2 feet across. So it doesn't actually give you a breakdown of how far. So basically at extreme distances, you can see objects as though they're very close. I should also say these is an uncommon attunement item found in the basic rules or the DMG. Again, I think it just kind of fits the overall tracker. You know, you're that kind of a role, or you can have that kind of a role, and I just think it fits. Number 9. Following in the same vein is the Stone of Good Luck for number 9. This uncommon attunement magic item is found in the basic rules and the DMG, and what this does is give you a +1 bonus to ability checks and saving throws. Now, the reason I put this on here is, again, like we talked about, you're going to have your Hunter's Bane ability, which is going to give you bonuses to your ability to intimidate, to use survival checks to track foes, so that's going to help you overall in that respect. Eventually, when you get your Grim Psychometry feature, it's going to ask you to make wisdom checks, so this gives you a +1 bonus to ability checks, so that will boost that as well. If you happen to go with one of the classes that gives you spells, or some of them will give you spells, certain ones require ability checks, like I think a Profane Soul can get access to Counterspell. This gives you a bonus to that ability check that will boost your overall ability of your Counterspell. So there's a lot of, also a +1 bonus to saving throws and ability checks in general. That's going to count as initiative as an ability check. You get a +1 to initiative. passive perception, passive investigation, all those will get bonuses. But you have a lot of things that do ability checks, which are one of the few times you're not going to have something tied specifically to a skill. So this will help you there. And then again, it boosts that whole tracking nature of your class. Number 8. As I've talked about before, the Ring of Spell Storing, which is number 8 on this list, is useful to every class. This is a rare attunement magic item found in the basic rules or the DMG. And basically what it lets you do is store up to 5 levels worth of spells into this ring. However, the other benefit is it works for not just you. It works for other spellcasters can take the time to touch your ring and cast their spells into your ring. So as a blood hunter, you are pretty much more or less not going to have access to healing spells. There's a few situations where you can have access to healing in general, maybe some healing spells, but this would be a way for a cleric, for example, to put, or any other healer really, to give you the ability to heal, which is something you wouldn't normally have. So that's good. This also could be a way for you to get more blasty AoE type spells from other casters. This would be a way for something like a paladin or somebody else to cast sort of weapon-based spells into your ring. Since you are largely a melee class, this will help you to increase your versatility. And if you do happen to choose the Order of the Profane Soul, you are basically have warlock casting, so you're severely hampered on your number of spell slots and what you can cast. So this will significantly increase your amount of spells you can cast per day. You do get your spells back on a short rest, so you do have the ability to load up this ring relatively quickly. But because you're always going to be casting at maximum level as a warlock does, and you're going to more or less be in that second to third level spell slot range, chances are you're going to be able to put some spells into the ring, but you would likely need somebody else to kind of top it off. So, I don't know, again, it works very well for the Profane Soul, but it works well for all of them to help increase your overall versatility. You're not just out there hitting stuff all the time. Number 7. Number 7 is the Hat of Disguise. Now, this should have possibly have been earlier on the list, and I would agree with you if you say that. But this uncommon magic, attunement magic item is found in the basic rules in the DMG. And basically, while you have it on, you can use an action to cast the Disguise Self spell on yourself at will. So again, as a blood hunter, you are a little bit unique, and depending on how blood hunters are received in your world, this may go even further, right? So if you're an Order of the Lichen blood hunter, you may have give off physical signs of lycanthropy, right? That may be something. And then, you're probably going to be all manner of covered in cuts and slashes and scars from where you're constantly cutting yourself with your blades to activate your Crimson Rite. So there may be scenarios where you want to hide the fact that you are a blood hunter from other people so that they don't call out to you specifically, either prejudice against you or look to seek your aid because of who you are and what you do. So the Hat of Disguise will not only be a useful tool for social encounters, sneaking, but it also will allow you to hide who you are and possibly go by, whether, again, not prosecuted or sought for aid by, potential allies looking for you to track down some sort of nasty for you to take out. Again, think about a blood hunter very similar to a Witcher from the Witcher series. So, people may look down on you or seek aid from you because of who you are, and this lets you get around, however you're different from other people. Number 6. Number 6 is the Cloak of Displacement. I've said this before, this can be on any list, but you are a melee class, so you are going to be in the thick of things fighting people. There's a couple of instances where you may have some range, and I guess you could use a ranged weapon for some of your abilities, but the class is more or less designed, I think, to be a melee class. So having this rare attunement magic item that's found in the basic rules or the DMG on you is super useful because while you wear the cloak, any creature has disadvantage on attack rolls against you. This works for ranged attacks as well as melee attacks as well as spell attacks. And it works constantly until you take some form of damage. Then it shuts down, but only until the start of your next turn, at which point it re-ups again and you have it again. So it more or less, I think, I don't know the specific numbers on it, but I know the way they typically treat advantage and disadvantage on rolls as far as skill checks and things go is a +5. So in theory, if that if you always have advantage on something, that provides you a +5 bonus to the passive version of it. So let's say you have constantly have advantage on perception checks. That would be a +5 bonus to your passive perception all the time. So in theory, if that stands true for AC, Cloak of Displacement works out to roughly be a +5 bonus to your AC, and there's very few instances where you will ever gain access to that. So again, it will let you do your thing, survive more, and be in the melee more often, which is good because if you're activating your Crimson Rite, you're going to be lowering your maximum hit points all the time. So being able to not be hit will help keep you alive. Number 5. Speaking of Crimson Rite and lowering your maximum hit points, you're going to want to have a high constitution and a lot of hit points to offset the fact that every time you activate your one major ability of your class, it's going to lower your maximum hit points and your current hit points by your level. That never goes away, so when you hit level 20, if you do, whenever you go to activate the feature you got at level 1, it's going to lower your maximum hit points by 20. And if you are using 2-weapon fighting and you want to activate it on both, then you're going to need to activate that twice, and that's going to be a hit to 40 to your maximum hit points. So the Amulet of Health, this rare attunement magic item found in the basic rules in the DMG, when attuned, just sets your Constitution score to 19. So this is going to give you just about as high as possible you can have extra hit points. If you're able to, the only time it doesn't work is if you already have an 18 or higher Constitution, at which point you wouldn't need it. So don't take this if you have an 18 Constitution. But if you have like a 12 or a 14 or whatever, this could be a huge boon to you. If you can get yourself access to the tough feat as well, anything you can do to boost your overall total maximum hit points will be good because you're going to constantly be lowering them. So that's why this is here. Number 4. So while discussing keeping yourself alive, Animated Shield is number 4. This very rare attunement magic item is found in the basic rules and the DMG, and basically what this does is when you use a bonus action to animate the shield, it hovers around you, giving you the benefit of a shield, a +2 to AC, but while leaving both hands free. As a Blood Hunter, you may choose to go the 2-weapon fighting route, wielding 2 blades, or axes or whatever. You may choose to go the 2-handed weapon route, a greatsword, the great axe, the maul. And if you do so with that, that's going to hamper your ability to use a shield. And you want to have the highest AC because, as I stated before, you're going to be lowering your maximum hit points, especially if you're doing 2 weapons and you have to lower your hit points by your level twice to imbue both blades or both whatever weapons with your Crimson Rite. Your maximum hit points are going to take a serious hit, and you won't have access to a shield. This mitigates that. Again, I believe you can still use a ranged weapon utilizing your Crimson Rite. So if you wanted to use a bow or a crossbow, that would work too. This would still give you the benefit of a shield while still using the bow or the crossbow. And again, you can use a 2-handed weapon. If you're going to be using a sword and shield all the time, the animated shield isn't as useful, but if I don't see any reason if you can get access to the animated shield why you wouldn't choose to go 2 weapons or 2-handed. Number 3. Number 4 is Mizzium Armor. You know me, if you're going to have to get some medium or heavy armor and you need to get something that's pretty good and is non-attunement, I'm always going to suggest Mizzium Armor. This rare non-attunement armor is found in the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica book. And basically, it functions identically to adamantine armor, but with one benefit. The benefit is when you are subjected to a magical effect that allows you to make a strength or constitution saving throw to take only half damage, you instead take no damage if you succeed on the saving throw. So it's like a form of limited evasion, but for strength and constitution saving throws. In addition, any critical hit becomes a normal hit, similar to adamantine armor. Again, it only works for medium armor for you unless you choose to take the heavy armor proficiency, which will boost you, give you the ability to wear things like plate mail and stuff like that. But you could get a Mizzium breastplate, which will not give you disadvantage on stealth checks and will still provide to you a significant benefit in the no critical hits and these extra bonuses. It doesn't work, unfortunately, for light armor, so if you are going to be a dexterous-based blood hunter, and not have medium armor. Go with a 20 dexterity, maybe be Order of the Lycan or something like that. This won't help, but for the majority of blood hunters, you can get by with a decent medium armor, half plate or breastplate of made out of Mizzium. You will not be disappointed. Again, as I've stated, you're going to lower your hit points, and critical hits are only going to just be that much worse for you because of your lessened hit points. So if you can just turn that into a normal hit, that'll be a pretty big thing. Also, lets you tank a little bit more if you want to get more up in the melee. Number 2 is going to be the Belt of Giant Strength. This varying rarity attunement item is found in the DMG and the basic rules. And you can see right here in this table that it varies, right? We said we weren't doing legendary, so if you look at the Belt of Fire Giant Strength, that gives you a 25 AC or 25 strength rather, and is very rare. Hill Giant Strength, which is the lowest, which is only rare, gives you a strength of 21. What these do is when you don and attune to these magic items, they put your strength score at whatever the number associated with them is. So if you have a Belt of Hill Giant Strength, your strength becomes a 21 as long as you wear the belt. Again, it doesn't help you if your score is already higher. So if you have a 20 strength, you are only going to benefit from the Belt of Frost Giant Strength or higher. But again, you're typically going to be a melee person as a blood hunter. Now, there are certain classes or certain subclasses like the Order of the Lycan, which can be a purely dex-based classes, as can the other ones, but they have a little bit of benefits of some of their abilities are tied mostly to dex. Or can be tied to dex, but that doesn't mean you can't use strength. So having one of these belts will increase your overall effectiveness in combat. You'll be able to hit more, you'll hit for more damage, things like that. So I think it's a good fit for you, especially if your strength is relatively low or your dexterity is low. This will help that. Again, if you're too low to wear heavier armors, this will also boost your strength score and allow you to don heavier armors you may not be able to wear otherwise. Again, anything that's going to make you do your thing, hit harder and hit more often, is something you're going to want to have. Number 1. And lastly, number 1, I put the Sunblade. But honestly, as a blood hunter, you're just going to want to have a magic weapon of some kind. That's going to be a big benefit for you. You're going to be hitting stuff, hunting a lot of really dangerous creatures, fae, fiends, undead, the like. A lot of them have resistances to non-magical attacks. So while your Blood Rite or your Crimson Rite ability will be a certain type of damage, which will be likely, hopefully not resisted by the creature you're fighting, you're going to want to have a magic weapon to get the regular damage boosted by that as well. So it doesn't hurt here. So let's talk about the Sunblade real quick. It's a long sword. It is rare. It requires attunement, and it's found in the basic rules and the DMG. So first of all, it is a +2 longsword. So right there, you're going to get a +2 to damage and a +2 to hit. So that's going to go a big bonus as far as making things better for hitting things. It also turns the base damage of the spell into radiant, so it does not deal slashing damage. It will deal all radiant damage. And if you hit an undead with it, it does an extra 1d8 radiant damage on top of that. That's on top of whatever you have for your Crimson Rite as well. It is a bonus action to make the blade appear, but what's cool is while the blade exists, this longsword has the finesse property. And if you are proficient with short swords or long swords, which you are as a blood hunter, you are proficient with the Sunblade. So it can be finesse, meaning you can use dexterity. So this specific blade is useful for Order of the Lycan, people that want to be dex-based blood hunters. It's also useful for strength-based blood hunters as well. And then again, it sheds a luminous light because it is made of sunlight, essentially. Bright light in a 15-foot radius and dim light for an additional 15 feet. This light is sunlight. You are a blood hunter. You're going to be hunting dark and dangerous things, potentially vampires or other undead things that are harmed by sunlight. So your blade is going to give you sunlight. It's going to give you improved attack and damage. It's going to be usable with strength or dex. It's going to deal extra damage to undead. It does purely radiant damage. And yeah, if you want to, you can use an action to expand or reduce the radius of bright light. Again, it starts as 15 feet of bright, 15 feet of dim, and then you can choose as an action to expand it by 5 feet to a maximum of 30 feet for each. So that would mean your blade, and there's no reason you couldn't do this ahead of combat if you knew you were going in, other than the fact that it's a bright glowing beacon to let people know where you are. to have it be 30 feet of bright sunlight, 30 feet of dim sunlight, or reduce it all the way down to 10 and 10 to hopefully make yourself not as noticeable. Again, as I stated, any magic weapon is the main thing you want to have as a blood hunter, but the Sunblade does a lot of things, especially if you're the Ghost Slayer, that gets you the bonuses to things versus undead, and your Crimson Rite can be radiant. You could be dealing just a ton of radiant damage. Also, it's a lightsaber. I mean, who doesn't want to have a lightsaber? Imagine playing The Witcher, but with a lightsaber. Like, that is basically what this would be. Also, I do want to point out, I always in my brain had it thought that, like, because it's a Crimson Rite, I think it used to be called Blood Rite back in the day, but I always imagined that you had to cut yourself in some way to activate your Crimson Rite, putting your blood on the blade. But I read through it, and it doesn't actually state anywhere that you need to cut yourself with your blade. I was just reading it. It says, you invoke a rite of blood magic within your blade at the cost of your own vitality. It never anywhere states inside it that you need to draw the blade across you or cut yourself with the blade. So there's no reason to do that, because I was going to say originally, I thought it was interesting because you'd be cutting yourself with sunlight, so you'd be cutting and instantly cauterizing your wound, which would be kind of just like a cool concept, but you don't actually have to do that. But if you want to, you can. So anyway, everyone, I hope you enjoyed my Christmas Eve top 10 video here, the top 10 magic items for Blood Hunters. Again, as I stated, if you want me to do a video on Blood Hunters, revisiting them and talking about what I like and what I don't like, I played one for 17 levels, and that campaign technically still exists, and we may revisit it at some point. But if you want to know more about it, I will gladly do that. I do have insight on playing a Blood Hunter. I happen to have gotten a set of really good armor and an Amulet of Health for my Blood Hunter, and I was employing both of those, and those are two of the best things I had. I also had a really good magic greatsword. Unfortunately, the Sunblade is a longsword, but if you can get a Sunblade greatsword and your DM will allow that, absolutely go for that, because that would be amazing. Anyway, everyone, I hope you really enjoyed this video. I hope you have a wonderful time on Christmas if you celebrate, or Happy Hanukkah as well. I think it's the second day of Hanukkah or third day of Hanukkah at this point. But again, happy holidays, whatever you may choose to celebrate. And I will be back next Tuesday, which will be New Year's Eve, with another top 10. At this point, I don't really know what it's going to be. So if you have suggestions, I know some of you have provided some to me already, and I do appreciate that. But if you have a suggestion for what you'd like to see as a top 10 video for next week, my suggestion, please don't make it a class-based magic item list. I've done 14 of these so far. I'd like to just change it up a little bit so I can break away and do something different. Maybe like top 10 monsters. I think I did that already. Or top 10 level 3 spells. I don't know. Just give me something interesting you think would be fun. Top 10 fiends. Top 10 dragons. I don't know. Don't do dragons. There's not that many. But you know what I mean. And I will be saying that later tonight, after you watch this video, I will be uploading a separate video covering our 10,000 plus subscriber giveaway. There's a lot of really cool stuff from a lot of really cool companies. Really big prizes to help end 2019 with a bang, because I really do appreciate all you guys understanding me having a funky streaming schedule and videos not coming out every day or not as often as they used to. But thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate you. I hope you have, again, a wonderful holiday, and I'll see you next time.